Did you know there are some 4,500 moorings spread out around Tasmania? They're all managed by MAST, and if you're a mooring permit holder or interested in getting a mooring, there are a few things you need to know. Moorings are a common sight around the state, with many people's pride and joy just swinging with the wind and tide, waiting for that next adventure. But if you're one of the lucky ones to have a mooring permit, it's up to you to keep it maintained and in good condition.
If you've got a mooring permit, you must have it located in a pointed location at all times in good usable condition. The mooring registration number must be clearly marked on the float above the waterline. The mooring cable length cannot be greater than 3 times the water depth. You must have the mooring serviced a minimum of every 2 years. However, some insurance companies recommend that this is done annually.
Obviously, a well-maintained mooring is in everyone's interest, and it's not only a good idea, but it's the law.
MAST conduct regular audits of all the mooring permits around the state. If your mooring permit's found non-compliant or an issue is identified, you may be issued an infringement notice or your mooring permit may be revoked. We're using the MAST GIS system to check moorings to make sure they're in their appointed place. The dark green dots are moorings that are identified with no issue. The purple dots are moorings that were found in their position without any ID. Blue dots are moorings that were not found during the audit and there was no tackle present on their position. Pink dots represent a vessel that's found on a mooring in poor condition.
MAST carries out mooring audits regularly. The rules are your mooring must be in its allocated position, it must have its mooring number clearly marked, and it must be in good usable condition. If it appears in a bad way, you may receive a fine or MAST can revoke the mooring permit.
Here we have a very fine example of a not very well maintained mooring. So these oysters are 4 years old. This is supposed to be serviced every 2 years, so it's at least 4 years and possibly more since it's been serviced. It's not too far before the weight of the shellfish will overcome the buoyancy of the float, take it to the bottom.
So what's the best way to make sure your boat is safe on its mooring? Service it at least every 2 years, if not more. You can inspect it yourself, but it's best to get a professional crew to do it for you. A list of mooring contractors can be found on the MAST website.
Our job is to service, maintain, supply and install new moorings and maintain existing moorings. We have 2 types of work really. We're either putting new moorings in, pulling old moorings out, or servicing moorings. Servicing moorings involves coming up to the mooring, grabbing hold of it, getting it on board the vessel, then winching all its components up onto the vessel, using the pressure washer, clean it all off so we can inspect it thoroughly, make sure there's no worn or damaged parts, and if there are worn or damaged parts, replace them.
And this is an example of what can go wrong. Without inspecting your mooring, pulling it up and actually having a look at it, you never know what condition your chain's going to be in. I mean, that is not, there you go, your boat's gone. That is not good, and that happens.
Right here where we are now, the bottom's very muddy, and this heavy chain will last, it'll well outlast me, but quite often, especially over at places like Nebraska Beach and Dens Point, we've seen this size chain only last for a year. And because it's ruffling around in the seabed, which is hard gravel and shell grit, it really abrades away very fast. So you've got to pull it up, inspect it, thoroughly wash it and clean it. You've got to make the decision, will that chain last another 2 years? And we often think, well, if it's got 20, 30% wear, we'll replace it.
It's also important to remember the top of the mooring. Your head rope needs to be in good condition. Chafe here is another common cause of boats breaking free. The other issue MAST faces day to day are boats which are becoming increasingly unsafe sitting on moorings. Again, it's the boat owner's responsibility to ensure their boat, along with their mooring, is in usable condition. If not, they can face large fines.
The cost of servicing your mooring is only a few $100s. However, if you fail to service your mooring and your boat breaks off your mooring and becomes stranded or sunken, it will cost you several $1,000s to retrieve that vessel.
All the relevant information you need about moorings in Tasmania can be found on the MAST website.